This video is powered by K.R. Mangalam University.
After what critics are calling a clear defeat in the Iran war, Trump is now seen as losing his tariff battle at home as well, adding a fresh setback to an already bruising period for his presidency. Following the embarrassment in the Middle East, Trump's signature tariff policy has been smashed by U.S. courts, undercutting one of his flagship economic weapons just when he most wants to project strength. The U.S. Trade Court has dealt a fresh blow to Trump just months before the midterms, ruling against his latest round of global tariffs and reinforcing the narrative that his economic agenda is running into legal dead ends. War failure, rising oil prices, and a major tariff defeat have combined into what looks like a bad luck spree for Trump, as voters watch pocketbook pain grow while his key policies unravel on multiple fronts at once. A U.S. trade court has dealt a fresh blow to President Trump over his 10% tariffs, undercutting one of his headline economic moves just months before the midterm elections. On May 7th, the U.S. Court of International Trade ruled that the 10% universal tariff on global imports was not justified, finding that the administration had misread the 1970s trade law that it relied on. In a 2-1 decision, the court said Trump had not satisfied the requisite legal conditions for imposing the tariff, concluding that the White House failed to demonstrate the kind of balance of payments emergency that the law envisions. The New York-based court further held that Trump had exceeded the authority granted to the president by Congress, stressing that the power to tax, including via tariffs, ultimately lies with lawmakers and not the executive alone. In its written opinion, the U.S. Trade Court said the tariffs were invalid and unauthorized by law, language that marks a sharper judicial rebuke of Trump's attempt to unilaterally reshape global trade. This latest ruling came just months after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down a broader set of Trump tariffs, including his sweeping reciprocal measures against multiple trading partners. In February 2026, the Supreme Court had already rejected Trump's global reciprocal tariff plan, ruling that he had overstepped the powers given to him under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. After that Supreme Court setback, Trump turned to the 1974 Trade Act and invoked special economic powers in an effort to reimpose a broad set of duties through a different legal channel. Citing Section 122 of the 1974 law, he imposed a 10% universal tariff on virtually all global imports, framing it as a temporary surcharge meant to address America's balance of payments problems. The trade court, however, stopped short of blocking the 10% tariffs nationwide, meaning that while it declared the policy unlawful for the plaintiffs in the case, the duties technically remain in force for other importers unless and until higher courts or further rulings extend the relief. Instead, the decision applied only to the 3 specific plaintiffs in the case, limiting the immediate relief to a narrow group rather than striking down the tariffs for everyone. Now, those 3 plaintiffs were the state of Washington, the specialty spice importer Burlap & Barrel, and the toy company Basic Fun, all of whom had challenged the legality of the 10% duties. Because of the 2-1 ruling's limited scope, the tariffs will remain in force for all other importers who will still have to pay the surcharge unless they file their own challenges or a higher court broadens the impact. The Trump administration, meanwhile, has signaled it will pursue an appeal against the trade court's decision, setting up yet another legal battle over the president's controversial tariff strategy. Ahead of the November midterm elections, the U.S. president celebrated a fresh stock market record, seizing on the rally as proof that his economic stewardship is delivering big wins for investors. Trump touted the record-breaking gains on Wall Street as evidence of a booming economy, arguing that rising indices show confidence in his leadership despite mounting concerns over war and inflation. On May 6th, both the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq Composite closed at record highs, rising by about 1.46% and 2% respectively, underscoring the strength of the latest surge in equities. The rise was driven largely by a spike in tech and AI-linked stocks, according to coverage that noted how chip makers, cloud firms, and artificial intelligence plays led the charge upward. The Dow Jones also climbed by more than 1%, pulling closer to its own record levels and reinforcing the impression of a broad-based rally across major U.S. indices. Analysts said the gains were partly attributed to renewed investor optimism over a possible breakthrough in Iran talks, with markets betting that diplomacy could ease geopolitical risks and energy fears. A drop in global oil prices was also triggered by growing hope around those peace talks, as reports suggested that progress at the negotiating table might soon translate into more stable supplies. Despite Trump's upbeat claims about the economy, the U.S. national average petrol price remains stuck at a multi-year high, keeping day-to-day costs painfully elevated for many American households. Petrol prices across America have climbed to an average of $4.48 per gallon, according to reports, piling extra pressure on drivers, small businesses, and the wider transport sector. Notably, before a brief dip on May 6th, petrol prices had already surged by about 11% in just 2 weeks, turning fuel into one of the most visible symbols of the current economic squeeze. Household expectations for food and fuel inflation are now at their highest level since 2022, according to the US Federal Reserve, reflecting deep public anxiety about rising living costs in the months ahead. Trump's stock market celebrating post came amid separate reports that the US and Iran were working on a one-page memorandum, suggesting that behind the scenes, both sides are edging toward formally closing this phase of the conflict. That memorandum is expected to officially end the war, but thorny issues like the future of traffic through the Strait of Hormuz and Iran's nuclear program will remain unresolved and still subject to tough, drawn-out negotiations.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.